Hello guys, welcome to Second Media YouTube channel. Please, if this is your first time of coming across my video, do me a favor to subscribe, hit the notification button below so that anytime I upload any video, you'll be the first to be notified. Thank you. So guys, I want to talk about Nigerians living in United Arab Emirates, UAE. In the recent time, we do see many of the videos coming up from United Arab Emirates, what is going on there within the Nigerians living in UAE, how difficult it is for Nigerians now living in UAE to have a job in UAE, to have a working permit in UAE, and one or two sufferings the Nigerians in UAE are passing through. I may say since 2020, it hasn't been easier for Nigerians who are living in UAE in terms of working permits. And anybody who lives in UAE knows what it is when you don't have job in UAE, what you will pass through because of the cost of living. Things are quite expensive in UAE. It's not easy for Nigerians who are living in UAE who don't have job to cope with the situation, because the cost of living in terms of bills that you will pay, house rent, is not easy, and these bills are bills that you cannot avoid. They are not avoidable. For you to live, you must have where you are laying your head. You must have a house where you live, and you can't be living without payment. And you must have money to feed yourself. You can't be living, you can't be alive when you can't feed yourself, when you don't have anything to eat. So it is not easy for Nigerians who are living in UAE, Dubai, as many could call it. UAE is not only about Dubai, it has 7 states that comprises Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Amoquin, Rasakama, Sharjah, Fujairah, Ajman. So these are the states in United Arab Emirates, though many people in Nigeria knows more about Dubai than any other states in United Arab Emirates. But in these states, Nigerians are living in all of these states. So since 2020, it has been a very difficult moment for Nigerians in United Arab Emirates in terms of getting job. Many are stranded. As I'm talking to you now, many will have more than 400 Nigerians in Dubai deportation camp, seeking for help, calling for Nigerians to help the Nigerian government to come and assist to evacuate them from United Arab Emirates. And there are still many who are still on the streets of United Arab Emirates who are not yet in the deportation camp. So what advice here is, if you are living in United Arab Emirates as a Nigerian citizen, you are living in United Arab Emirates and you don't have job, you find out that there is no job for you, there is no way for you to get a working permit. There are some who were working before, but once their contract ended with their companies, the companies refused to offer them a new contract, leaving them to live in UAE with no documents. So if you are among these fellows, I think the best thing for you is go back to Nigeria. Your home will always be better than any other place. You may think it is hard before you left Nigeria to UAE, but I think the best thing that you could do to yourself is to look for a way, go home. If it's to join those in the deportation camp, you join them pending to the time the Nigerian government will intervene, or the UAE government will decide to evacuate anybody who is in the deportation camp to their various countries. So I think that should be better for you. Instead of you living within the fear of unknown, you may be thinking, how can you go home without anything in your pocket or in your account? My brother, my sister, it is not the best for you that you're living in abroad and people are counting on you. Your family are counting on you, looking up to you, that you are in abroad, expecting much from you. And you know that you can barely eat even once in a day. What is the benefit of that? Languishing in another man's country when you know that there is a place you come from. And I think no matter the situation at home, the home will always be the best. The home is always the place you will always fall back to once the going become tougher. It's better you go home instead of staying in UAE, involving yourself in some unacceptable situations that you are not supposed to be into, just because you don't have means of livelihood there in UAE. You came to UAE to search for a greener pasture. Yes, everybody knows about that nobody will just wake up in the morning to travel abroad without the intention of going there to seek for a greener pasture, to seek for a more better life. So, but in a situation you get to the foreign country and you find out that it's not working out for you there. It's no longer what you bargained. It's no longer what you thought before you embark on the journey. I think the best thing is to look for a way to go back home and re-strategize. There are many people who left UAE. Getting back home, things turn around for them for good. Things that they never expected, the type of life they never expected that they could get, they begin to have it there at home. It's better for you to decide. And anything you may be thinking, when I go home, how will I start? What will I do? When many people must have been looking up to me, when some of my friends have been thinking that I'm making a lot of money in abroad, when many have heard that I'm no longer in Nigeria, how will I now go home? Where will I start from again? Those things, I see it as you are just putting fear of unknown in your life, in yourself. There must be a way out. There must be where you will start from. Don't think that you cannot go back home because there is no other place to whatever you will start to. Once you get home, my dear, there must be something you will start. There must be way out. You must have something to lay your hands on, especially as far as you are still living and you are healthy. Many of Nigerians in UAE are graduates, educated people. When you come home, you can still be creative. Just put that creative mind in you that without abroad, that you can still make it. That you can create something out of yourself. That is why you are educated. You can think out of the box to discover one thing or the other that you can lay your hand and you begin to have a better living. Instead of wasting your time outside there, seeing it that you are living in abroad, why you cannot afford to send anything back home, why you are still calling back home to send to you from the same home that you left. You know how it was before you left. You are still calling your guardians, your friends, your relatives, your well-wishers, your parents to send something to you to sustain yourself. Is it not better you go home so that you can see another phase of life and you change your narrative. Don't see it that it must be in UAE that you make it. You can leave UAE and things turn around for good. So there is no need for you to continue hiding yourself in UAE, roaming around the streets, sleeping in the bus stations, sleeping in the metro stations, sleeping under the staircase, sleeping in beer parlors, just because you still want to remain in UAE and you know that there is nothing coming out of you in UAE, that the UAE is not favoring you. There are people, we still have Nigerians in UAE who UAE has favored, but it will not favor everybody. There are many that it has favored, and there are many that could not get their own fortune in UAE. I think the best thing for those people who are not catching up their fortune in UAE is just to rethink and change their narrative. Drop anything fear of unknown. Don't think of what people will say. Think of what is your actual plan for your own self. How can you make it in your life? It's not how can people make it for you. If you continue thinking about what people will say, remember that one day, if you like, spend 10 years in UAE, and if you don't, and you still don't make it, you will actually one day come home. Then those things that you don't want them to hear from people saying, you will still hear it, and by that time it might be somehow late. So I think the best thing is rethink. That people will say, don't consider it anything that will make you not to come back or fall back to your country to start a new living. Don't think of what people will say. After a while, we are traveling. You did not borrow money from anybody to travel. It's either your hard-earned money or your loved ones sponsored you to travel. Even if you borrow money, you will pay. It won't stop you from going back and re-strategize. It's better you are living than you are not living because you want to live in a foreign land. It's better you are living even if you are owing anybody back home, that you are living and the person see you that you're still living, that you can be able to still afford to pay. If not today, tomorrow, you can still pay. So I don't see any reason for you as a Nigerian in United Arab Emirates that have seen the handwriting on the wall. You've seen it that it is no longer easier there for you to stay there with your job. You can't live in UAE when you don't have job. It is one of the most difficult life I've ever seen. Is living in United Arab Emirates when you don't have job. Those who have job is even finding it difficult to pay their bills. Then talk about you that doesn't have job. Then how are you going to cope? Even when you call back home asking for help, how much will people at home send to you that will be enough for you, that will even be close to enough for you, that will even be up to your feeding? For how long will they continue sending to you? I think the best thing for anyone, any Nigerian who is living in United Arab Emirates, either you can call it Dubai, which many people knows United Arab Emirates with. So if you are living in Dubai and you don't have job to take care of yourself and your family back home, I think the best thing is look for a way. Now that there are many Nigerians, at least we have more than 400 Nigerians in the deportation camp, you can as well join them, pick your baggage, Join them in the deportation camp while others are soliciting for Nigerian government support and help. You join them to solicit for that, pending to when they will listen to you, which I know definitely one day they will listen and evacuate you people. Then if Nigeria government did not intervene, which I know definitely they will, then UAE government will still as well do it as their own way to evacuate anybody in their deportation camp. So that will be better for you than some of you are waiting for when you will get your own money, when you will make your own money to facilitate your traveling back to Nigeria. But remember that there is no time feast for you to make that money that you're thinking about, that you want to make first before you can be able to travel to your country or go back to your country. So I want you, anything, fear of unknown in you, those things that you think that is making you to remain in UAE suffering, I think this is the time you will rethink and ask yourself, are you living for another person or are you living for your own self? I think this question will help you a lot to readjust, instead of you wasting your time there, wasting your energy, wasting your talents that could have maybe be best for you to manage. So the best thing is for you to rethink. UAE is not for you. If you don't have job in UAE, it's not for you. It's not even easier for people who are living in UAE with job and the resident permit. It's not even that easy. Then you should look up to those people who are even working the way they are living. Then use it to compare yourself and consider yourself. So this is my little advice to anyone, especially our own people, Nigerian citizens in United Arab Emirates. Don't think it is late for you to come back. Don't think if you come back now, you can't have anything to lay hand on. My dear, you have many things to lay hand on. There are many things you can lay hand on, and your life will even change for better. So if you come across this video, do favor to share it so that it will get to some of these people who are still suffering this thing, these situations of no job permit in United Arab Emirates. Thank you.